laboratory setting. So we bring people into our place of work, and have them have conversations. Maybe they have conversations with friends. Maybe they're asked to engage in a social task where they are trying to recognize and understand other people's emotions. And we measure that for people who are relatively higher in socioeconomic status or relatively lower, and we observe any of those differences that arise in the studies. So, we're investigating socioeconomic status differences in how people perceive others' emotions, in how people explain and understand the world around them.
Elaborate on that a bit. When you say how people perceive one another's emotions, explain how that works in terms of how you measure.
Yeah. So, in the studies, they come to the lab and they tease each other. So they're supposed to come up with a funny nickname and a story for the person that they've known and liked over time. And then we find out what emotions that person who's doing the teasing feels and what their partner thinks they felt. And then we measure socioeconomic standing, and then we try to see who's accurate or inaccurate in those perceptions. And some of what we find relevant to this topic is that higher socioeconomic status, higher income in this case, friends do not pick up on if their teasing friend is feeling hostile emotions. If they're feeling anger or contempt, our high socioeconomic status friends are blissfully unaware of those emotions, for instance.
Do you have any sense of why that is, or were you just kind of able to find a correlation?
So, it goes back to, in many ways, what we think of how wealth and how resources that accumulate for individuals, how they create a different kind of environment for you. It's a kind of independence and agency that we don't see in others. You can make things happen through influencing people, through purchasing things you desire, through the virtue of both hidden and visible advantages that wealth and income provide you. And that can create a way of seeing the world that allows you to, when other people feel emotions that may impact you, to sort of walk through the world and be less bothered by those emotions.
We're speaking to Professor Michael Kraus of the Yale School of Management. Glad to have gotten some of your stories about how wealth affected you. Here's just one of the voicemails that was left in our inbox.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I kind of had an experience of how wealth affects your emotions. Just last summer, I got a really good job at a big law firm and was getting paid about $3,500 a week. I'm a person who comes from generational poverty, and that was a big deal for me. I was able to do something like when me and my roommate moved and she didn't quite have the rent yet, I was able to take care of the whole 2 months rent for both of us. Budgeting was easier. Just things that I didn't have to worry about that I'm used to worrying about. And I felt lighter and definitely a little bit happier. So not quite there yet, but I will be there after law school. So.
Yeah, Nicole, thanks for sharing your story with us. Professor Kraus, what's your reaction to Nicole's voicemail? She mentioned that she felt happiness. Does your research show anything similar?
Well, I sort of picked up on the agency, the experience of agency that she was, for the first time really getting a hold of and trying to make sense of. But this ability to, if you need something, to just be able to afford it, to cover it, to find new and different ways in which you can personally affect your own outcomes, and how the experience of that makes a bunch of other things possible for you as an individual, whereas before you'd have to rely on an extended network of family and connections. Now you can handle the things that you need to handle to create new opportunities for yourself, and that is in many ways a great encapsulation of what socioeconomic standing brings people.
Were there any of your findings, Professor, that were most revealing or surprising? Maybe anything that you expected the data to bear out that they didn't?
A lot of it's surprising. One of the things that we've been doing recently is sort of studying the ways in which subtle cues about social standing, they are expressed and perceived in even the briefest social interactions, right? So if you are going on someone's Facebook page, you can see their profile photos, you can see a few photos that they have on their page, and you can make accurate inferences about their social standing in society. You know if they're high or low status. You hear people speak, you know that as well. That happens really briefly, and what that does is it creates spaces that define people as high or low status. It creates expectations in interactions that allow you, I think, to have more of this agency, right? If you walk in a room and people see you and code you as someone who's high status, that opens doors for you that wouldn't necessarily be opened if you didn't have those kinds of markers that were available in brief encounters.
I wonder maybe, and we'll get more into this in a moment, but I wonder maybe if we should just knock out the elephant in the room about what many people think about the wealthy. Anne kind of summed it up on our Facebook page. Anne writes, "Wealth makes you a jerk. It reduces empathy and makes you more selfish. There are very few people who can resist it happening to them." Professor?
So, I mean, that's interesting, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that, because that puts a lot of the onus on what happens to you when you're wealthy on people of wealth, right? That there's something essential about those people that makes them more selfish and less empathic. I would say that if you have, I might frame it a different way. So if you have a system of economics in place that rewards behaviors that are selfish, that prioritize, wealth-based social standing, that lionize the accumulation of resources and the out-competition of other people, what you're going to get at society's top is people who live those values, who prioritize those values. And so to say that wealth changes you in those ways, I'm not sure if you can go that far, because what we do have is a system in place that leads people who hold those values to attain status. And so I think that maybe the causality could go in the opposite direction.
Nancy emailed, "Sudden wealth would change me drastically. For one thing, I'd be much happier and..." Well, that's pretty much it. And Anjali wrote on our Facebook page, "Is anyone really going to admit that they're in this category?" As a matter of fact, Anjali will add a guest in just a moment who is absolutely in this category and has a warning for his fellow 1%ers, and we'll get to more of your comments as well. I'm Joshua Johnson, and you have wisely invested in 1A from WAMU and NPR.
I got it, I want it, I got it, I want it, I got it, I want it, I got it. You like my hair, she thinks, just do it, I see it, I like it, I want it.
Supporting WHYY Meadowwood, offering a variety of senior living solutions, including staying in your own home. Its newest option, The Grove, features spacious residences with corner views. Learn more at meadowwood.net. Meadowwood Senior Living. It all begins with you.
If you've been listening to our membership campaign at all, you've heard us teasing a big announcement on Monday. There are clues, there's lots of excitement, but for my money, and let's be real, money's extremely important in keeping WHYY's news, analysis, discussion, and storytelling coming. The most exciting thing for you, the listener, is the chance to choose the mystery mug as a thank you gift for your donation right now. Seriously, that thing goes away. WHYY.org/support. Thank you.
Supporting WHYY, Walnut Street Theater's The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. After 15-year-old Christopher is wrongly accused of a crime, he sets out to investigate on his own in this heartwarming adventure. Now through April 28th, walnutstreettheater.org. And the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. PAPA offers an array of art classes, activities, and programs for kids ages 4 to 18 this summer, including Family Art Academy, day camps for kids, and pre-college programs for teens in drawing, painting, sculpture, printmaking, and more. Registration is now open for high school 1-week intensives. PAPA also offers summer art camps for kids 4 to 15 starting June 24th. papa.org/community education.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from ADP, committed to designing a better way to work so people can achieve what they're working for. ADP, always designing for people. Learn more at design.adp.com. From Progressive Insurance, with the Name Your Price tool, offering a range of coverage and price options to choose from. Now that's Progressive. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
This is 1A. I'm Joshua Johnson. We're getting inside the minds of the super wealthy with psychologist Michael Kraus. Glad to get to some of your comments as well. Chris wrote on our Facebook page, part of the problem is wealthy is always defined as richer than me. I'm sure I'm not wealthy, but I no longer have to debate whether I can afford to spend $100. It was once a debate about $5. Mike wrote on our Facebook page, my parents inherited a lot when both sets of my grandparents passed away. They went from being a frugal, comfortable couple to an entitled boomer couple. They take multiple trips a year, buy new cars outright, and have changed personally into people I don't really know at times. They're still my parents, and my sister and I still love them, but they have changed. Thank you very much for sharing your stories with us. We welcome more of your stories and questions. Comment on our Facebook page, tweet us at 1A, or email 1A@wamu.org. Let's add two more voices to the conversation now. Joining us from KUOW Public Radio in Seattle is Nick Hanauer. He was an early investor in Amazon and has sold dozens of companies, making hundreds of millions of dollars. Nick, welcome to 1A. In New York is Anand Giridharadas, the author of Winners Take All, the elite charade of changing the world. He's also editor-at-large of Time Magazine. Anand, thanks for joining us again.
It's great to be back with you.
Nick, let me start with you. For people who don't know your story, how would you characterize your wealth? How wealthy are you?
Less than $1 billion, but hundreds of millions.
Oh, less than $1 billion. Well, then I don't know why we booked you. We have no need to talk to you anymore.
I know.
Sorry.
Well, I just want to point out I am not a policy failure.
You are not saying?
I'm not a policy failure.
So you are not a billionaire, but you're kind of like a 100 millionaire.
But a lot more than that.
There's hundreds of millions there.
Yes.
Okay. When did you know you were truly wealthy? What was that like?
You know, I was prosperous for a long time, but you know, I was the first investor in Amazon.com, among other things. And when that company, you know, the stock in that company went, you know, crazy. And, you know, I mean, when I was worth more than $100 million, I definitely felt wealthy. But then, you know, we sold this company. I founded a company called Aquantive that we sold for $6.5 billion, 2007. And, you know, I owned a lot of that company. And that definitely, yeah, that was a lot. So, I don't know. I mean, and
that's when you started eating in restaurants on weekdays, also, not just
yes, exactly.
You didn't have to roll.
When I bought myself
anymore.
a second pair of jeans.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, and I have felt wealthy for a pretty long time. I mean, I grew up. I mean, I definitely was not born a poor child, but I grew up really middle class. I went to public schools and lived in a very kind of normal house. But my parents, you know, my dad and mom were really high functioning, and I grew up in a small family business, and we were never wealthy, but we were secure. You know, and you know, so it you know, but it happened, and you know, but by the time I was about 35 or 40, I was. You know, I was pretty wealthy.
Before I come to Anand, Nick, I wonder what your thoughts are on some of what we just heard from Professor Kraus. Does that ring true to you?
It really does ring true to me with this one stipulation, which is that you know, I know a lot of rich people. I know many of the richest people in the world, and I will tell you that they're not a lot different than normal people in the sense that, you know, some rich people are extraordinarily talented, but a lot of them are just like folks that were in the right place at the right time. And even the most extraordinarily talented of them are not, you know, these are not people who generally are wrestling over, you know, John Rawls or trying to decide between axiological or deontological ethical systems. They're just going about their lives. And in the same way that most people don't wrestle with moral issues and issues of empathy, neither do rich people. I would very much say that, but great wealth does insulate you from the need to depend on other people. And empathy is a tool, an evolved tool that we have to get along with other folks. And the less you depend on other people, you know, frankly, the less empathetic you get. And, you know, I would say that there's this old song, which I believe Mike would agree with, that wealth and power do not so much change you, they review you for what you are. And if you start out as a deeply empathetic person, wealth probably is not going to change you. But the truth is that many, many people are wealthy because they are narcissistic, highly competitive, and enormously status conscious, right? That's what drives you to want to be wealthy and to want to win in the way that is required to create great wealth. And so, you have this, it's a bit of a feedback loop at the top.
I think one of our listeners kind of commented in the direction of what you're saying, Nick. One of our listeners, a member of the Text Club, wrote, I disagree with your one listener that said wealth turns people into pretty jerks. And there's some people that are wealthy, they're total jerks. There are wealthy people that are very generous and very nice. I wonder what your perspective is on this, because you talk to many wealthy elite people for your new book. You were chosen among a group of distinguished fellows at the Aspen Institute in 2011, started to move among the uber wealthy. How did that affect your perspective of wealth and the impacts on particularly, social connection?
I think what's so interesting about this conversation is so often we are trained to look at these issues in terms of individual morality, right? Is this person a good person or a bad person? Is this person kind or not kind? And I think one of the things I'm really reporting is that, to the point that Nick made, rich people are a diverse group in terms of character, the way all groups are diverse in terms of character. When radio hosts, there's nice radio hosts and there's mean radio hosts, and there's nice and mean people in every arena. It doesn't matter. What matters is how much power those people's whims and feelings and attitudes have in shaping what the society looks like. And, I think if you gave, cab drivers the power to decide, what everything in America, how everything in America works, what our public policies are, I think you'd get pretty bad public policies from just cab drivers to make all of our social decisions. So I don't think, to me, this conversation is not about rich people being awful people. It's about the fact that we have designed a society in which rich people have such disproportionate voice in deciding what kind of policies we have, what kind of taxes we do, what kind of foreign policy we have, what kind of a response we have to climate change. And we so overweight their voices that their good ideas have too much voice, but also their frailties, their limitations, and most importantly, their natural human instinct to guard and keep what is theirs ends up becoming the law of the land on issue after issue. And therefore, people with the most to lose from improving the status quo somehow end up with a veto over the improvement of the status quo.
Anand, I just want to make sure that we don't glaze over the point that you were making. It sounds like you're saying that something about, in-groups shaping society to their benefit or to their advantage is not unique to the wealthy. It's human, but because this society allows people with great wealth to have such great influence, and not just this society, but many around the world, that kind of is the nexus of America's challenge, but it's a human challenge. It's not just about the money. Am I hearing you right?
And I think what's interesting is, I always say, never get in a car with a plutocrat because they don't know how to stay in their lane. And so
that is a bumper sticker waiting to be printed.
Look, if I know a lot of people in my world, in the writing world, who are successful at writing or successful at editing books. Here's something I've never heard any of them say. I've been really had a great run with this book or with this publishing house I work at. I'm now going to rethink public schools, right? Or I'm going to go to
run
Facebook.
for president.
I'm going to run a division of Facebook and really make it way more profitable because my novel was well received. But the other thing does happen. You have folks who, in the way that Nick laid out, sometimes because of usually some mix of talent and circumstance, being in the right place at the right time, being in the right place at the right time, gets to have a lot of privilege. But then folks who make a lot of money in business tend to swerve across the highway into, I have some thoughts about public schools. Mark Zuckerberg, the most amazing example, who runs a company that is a plague, claims that he's going to get rid of all the diseases. It's like, no, dude, just don't be a plague. First, just don't be a plague.
Just fix Facebook first.
Right.
Professor Krauss, I wonder what your reaction is to what we heard from Anand.
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in what's being said. I think that you know, I might frame it in a slightly different way, but I think the you know, the message is the same. That, you know, social standing in society comes with signals of virtue for individuals, that they're good, that they're best, that they're right, that they're going to be good at governing. And that is a natural way to perceive people, but the reality of people and all people is that you need some greater interdependence in some way, right? Some checks on your behavior. And if you design a system of government that doesn't really understand people, all people, and how they need to be interdependent, how they need to have checks on their power, you have the system of government we have that doesn't work well for all people.
Alexander emailed, when I think of wealth, I think of freedom, being able to do simple things without worrying how I'm going to make it till tomorrow. For instance, I have one child from a previous relationship, and I just got married to the most perfect woman in the world who doesn't yet have a child. All she wants, all I want, is to have another child, but we can't afford everything that goes with a child right now, like daycare. Brian emailed, I am not rich, so I have no idea what it is like to be rich. What does bother me is the twisted way we value things in our bizarre society. We assign quote-unquote values to things like money in any form, and then the rich seek to hoard as much of it as possible. We see the worth of things based on the ability to monetize them. Like a real estate developer is more valuable than the nurse caring for my mother. I'm Joshua Johnson, and you're listening to 1A.
And you're listening to 1A on WHYY. Good morning. I'm Katie Culinary here with Laura Benshoff, and we're listening along with you to this fascinating conversation on 1A. And we're also here to remind you about something. That conversations like this, shows like 1A, only happen because of listeners like you who become members. This is WHYY Spring Membership Drive. Again, the time of year, we're coming to you and we're reminding you that this is what makes public radio happen. Listeners like you becoming members. We invite you to do that right now. You can do that in just a couple of minutes by going online to WHYY.org and clicking on the donate button, or call us 1-888-345-9499.
That's right. We have a goal of $1,000 this hour for this spring membership campaign. We're really trying to focus on a dollar amount. We're trying to, hour by hour, pull in the money we need. The faster we get it, the faster we can be out of here. So there's really no reason to wait. If you're somebody who likes to procrastinate during our pledge drives, you really want to wait for a fun challenge, or, you know, until the pressure's been on for a few more days. You know, the faster we get in, the faster we can get out. So we're asking you to give us $1,000 this hour. This mini goal really is sort of a building block. So the next hour we can meet the next mini goal and stay on track, because this is really all about planning for us. We need to be able to plan to bring you the shows like 1A that we purchase nationally. We pay about $1.8 million a year to bring you all of the great national coverage, the NPR shows that we carry. So help us support that. Give us a call, 1-888-345-9499. Or, as we know, many of you do, visit us at WHYY.org. It's just at the click of a button.
That's right. And Andrew from Philadelphia made a pledge to WHYY today. Thank you so much, Andrew. And he dropped us a little line, and he wrote us a lovely note, and he says, I'm showing my support this year because I'm a young man who just turned 26, and I feel like I'm in a never-ending stage of growth as I listen to WHYY each morning, every day at work. I started listening with my father all day as we would drive around through the neighborhoods, completing plumbing job after plumbing job. WHYY has created a special place, not only in my heart, but in my consciousness as well. What a wonderful testament to the way that public radio fits into our